everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We've gotten a ton of feedback from you guys saying you love learning about pop culture, but just don't have the time to go full on research mode, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, who has time to read every book and watch every show?
Exactly. So today we're tackling Attack on Titan, which, if you haven't noticed, has a lot of characters.
It really does, and honestly, some of them are so complex, it's hard to know what to make of them.
That's where our source material comes in for this deep dive.
Mhm.
We found this awesome discussion between two superfans, and they actually went ahead and ranked all the major characters.
I love it. So we're not just getting like a basic overview. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of what makes these characters tick and why they resonate with people.
Totally. So we'll be looking at their rankings and, more importantly, why they put them in that order. What makes these characters strong? How do they change? What impact do they have on the story? All that good stuff.
It's like a character study cheat sheet.
Right. So shall we get started with Eren Yeager?
Let's do it.
Now, Eren's whole deal at the beginning is pretty straightforward, right? It's all about revenge. He wants to wipe out the Titans because, well, they pretty much destroyed his life.
Yeah, the dude has serious baggage. But what's so interesting about him is how that initial drive for revenge evolves.
Oh, it gets complicated fast. And, I mean, the fans we're looking at definitely see him as one of the most compelling characters. In fact, they gave him a 9 out of 10 for strength, a perfect 10 for character development.
Oh,
I know, right? And another 10 for his impact on the whole story, bringing him to an overall 8 out of 10.
that's seriously impressive.
It is, but here's the thing. The more he develops, the more his choices become morally questionable. You start to wonder, is he really the hero of this story? Or is he becoming something else entirely?
It's that gray area that makes him so fascinating. Because he's not your typical straightforward protagonist. And as viewers, it kind of makes you question your own sense of right and wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we root for someone who does some pretty messed up things? But then again, can a character truly be interesting if they're just perfectly good all the time?
Right. It's those flaws and difficult decisions that make us think, make us debate. And ultimately, I think that's what stays with us long after we finish the story.
All right, let's move on to another fan favorite, Mikasa Ackerman. Now, this is someone who definitely falls into the badass with a heart of gold category. Would you agree?
100%. She's fiercely protective, incredibly strong, and her loyalty to Eren is unwavering.
Yeah, our enthusiasts called her the ultimate badass with a heart of gold. And they gave her scores that back that up. A perfect 10 for strength, which, come on, have you seen her fight?
She's a force of nature.
Totally. And a 9 for her overall impact on the story. But there's a little bit of a catch.
What's that?
So they only gave her an 8 out of 10 for character development. They felt like while she's amazing, they wanted to see more of her own journey, more growth outside of her relationship with Eren.
I could see that. I mean, while her loyalty is super admirable, you do start to wonder if she's, capable of growing on her own.
Right. And I think it speaks to a larger challenge in storytelling. How do you create a character who is deeply devoted to another person without sacrificing their own individual development?
It's a tough balance to strike. It kind of makes you wonder, if you took Eren out of the equation, who would Mikasa be?
Now let's talk about a character who undergoes one of the most dramatic transformations, Armin Arlert. He's pretty much the definition of never judge a book by its cover.
Totally. I mean, he starts off as this scared, kind of fragile kid, but man, does he prove everyone wrong.
He really does, and it's not about physical strength with him. He becomes the brains of the operation, the strategist who comes up with all the plans that, save everyone's butts.
And the fans we're looking at called him out as the heart and the mind of the Scouts. They gave him a 10 out of 10 for character development, a 9 for impact, and...
But what about strength? He's not exactly known for his combat skills.
Right, but they gave him a 7 initially, saying it probably goes up later when he, gets his Titan powers.
Right. Can't forget about that.
But it just goes to show that strength comes in many forms. It's not always about being the biggest or the strongest physically. Sometimes it's about strategy, about intelligence.
Absolutely. And Armin really shows us that anyone can rise to the occasion, even if they don't start out as the most obviously capable.
Totally. I think his story is super inspiring, especially for anyone who's ever felt underestimated.
Okay, ready for another really popular one?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Levi Ackerman. This guy is basically an attack on Titan legend.
Oh, he's iconic. The stoic badass, the master of combat.
And he's got the fan following to prove it. They literally call him the Jet.
Yeah, no kidding. The enthusiasts we're looking at gave him perfect 10s across the board for strength and impact, and a 9 for character development, which is saying a lot.
What makes Levi so interesting is that he initially comes off as this almost like untouchable figure.
Right, like he's got it all figured out. But then the story starts to peel back those layers, and you realize he's carrying a lot of pain, a lot of baggage.
Exactly. He's not just this perfect fighting machine. He's got a backstory, he's got depth, but he just, internalizes it all.
And I think that's what makes him so relatable. Because we all have stuff we're dealing with, right?
Totally. But it also makes you wonder, is it really healthy to keep everything bottled up inside like that? Maybe not.
Probably not. But hey, it works for Levi.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the heroes, so to speak. But Attack on Titan wouldn't be the same without its complex antagonists. And I think Zeke Yeager is a perfect example of that.
Oh, absolutely. The Beast Titan, Eren's half-brother.
Yeah.
He's one of those characters who you just love to hate, but then kind of start to see his point.
Yeah, he's super intelligent, incredibly manipulative, and his plans are, well, let's just say they're pretty messed up. But there's a method to his madness, right?
Definitely. The enthusiasts we're looking at gave him an 8 for both strength and impact and a 9 for character development, which means they saw how well written he is.
Totally. And they pointed out that you can sort of understand where he's coming from. He's driven by this really twisted sense of idealism, but it's still idealism,
It's like his heart's in the wrong place, but he's convinced he's doing the right thing, and that makes him all the more terrifying.
Exactly. Because you can see the logic in his twisted worldview. Even if you completely disagree with it, it really forces you to ask yourself, where do you draw the line between empathy and condemnation?
It's a tough question.
Hmm.
And it's one that Attack on Titan really excels at exploring.
Speaking of complex characters, let's talk about Reiner Braun, the armored titan. Now, here's someone who I think embodies the tragedy of war more than almost any other character.
Oh, Reiner's story is heartbreaking. I mean, the guy is swimming in trauma.
Right. He's forced to do these horrible things, and he carries so much guilt and regret. It's like he's constantly at war with himself.
Yeah, the enthusiasts called him out for that, giving him a 10 for character development and a 9 for both strength and impact.
They kept mentioning this idea that he didn't sign up for this, which really sums up his whole arc.
It does. He's in way over his head, burdened by this immense responsibility and this, soul-crushing pressure.
Yeah, it's like even though he's literally the armored titan, he's so incredibly vulnerable. And it makes you question the whole concept of heroes and villains.
Totally, because in a way, Reiner is both.
Mm.
He's a victim of circumstance, but he's also responsible for terrible acts. It's that gray area that makes him so compelling.
Okay, so as we wrap things up here, let's look at how the fans in our source material actually ranked these characters. Host number 1 put Levi at the top, then Eren, Mikasa, Armin, Reiner, and finally Zeke.
Interesting. What about the other fan?
Host number 2 actually put Eren first, but then it was the same order. Levi, Mikasa, Armin, Reiner, and Zeke. So pretty close overall. But I think it's super significant that both of them put Levi and Eren at the very top. I mean, that says a lot about their impact on the story, right?
Absolutely. They're clearly the most complex, the most dynamic, the most everything.
Right. And what I found really cool was that both enthusiasts pointed out that even the characters they ranked lower are still super well developed. Like, even the worst characters at Attack on Titan are still considered pretty great.
And I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the writing. There are no throwaway characters. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a story to tell.
Exactly. And it makes you think about how subjective these kinds of rankings really are. Because what makes a character the best is totally up to the individual. Right?
Oh, sure. So to all of you listening, think about what you prioritize when it comes to fictional characters. Do you love the strong, silent types like Levi? Or are you drawn to characters with complex moral journeys like Eren?
And ultimately, what does your personal ranking say about you, about what you value in a story? So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the characters of Attack on Titan. Hopefully we've given you a good starting point for your own exploration.
Yeah, because this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more to unpack, so many layers to these characters.
If you're looking for a show that'll really make you think and keep you on the edge of your seat, Attack on Titan is definitely worth checking out.
And hey, if you do watch it, let us know what you think. Who are your favorite characters? Who did you love to hate? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.